What is going on, all you Pokemon collecting maniacs out there? This is Ryan, the PikaPikaPaPa, and I am so excited to be talking about the XY era with you all today. There is all kinds of awesome stuff going on, and it is just incredibly exciting. I think the XY era has been flying under the radar for far too long, and I think maybe now the market is starting to realize it, and we're starting to see some really positive trends. And this is the type of stuff where I just sit back and I go, this is why I do what I do. This is why I warehouse data. This is why I do trend analysis. This is why I take all the time to compile it and share it with you all. I always say I want to play chess when everybody else is playing checkers. I want you to have a finger on the pulse of what's going on at the macro level of the hobby, and I think this is a good indication of stuff that's going on in the XY space, and I'm excited to share it with you. Now, normally what I do is every single month over month, I go ahead and aggregate the value of the top 20 singles cards for the Sun and Moon and the Sword and Shield era, right? And then I also aggregate all of the booster boxes, right? So what I do is I say, okay, listen, for Sword and Shield, every single set that has a booster box, the total value of the top 20 cards that come from that. So 12 sets that have booster boxes, right? The top 20 from each of those sets. So that's 240 different cards, and I aggregate the value. I do it for Sword and Shield, I do it for Sun and Moon, and it's been really insightful to help us keep a finger on the pulse of what's going on in those spaces. I also do it for Scarlet and Violet, right? You saw the video that I did yesterday. I don't do that. I don't share the information very often because I don't feel like it's super relevant right now, but I do that in the background because at some point it will be relevant. I want to make sure that I have that warehouse for you. I also do XY. So every month I aggregate that data, but what I do is I do a video every 2 months on XY because, as I said earlier, I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to it. I think it's flying under the radar, but I think it's time for all of us Pokemon collecting maniacs to start paying attention to XY, because this is what the graph looked like for the total value of the top 20 singles cards 2 months ago, right? Now, I started aggregating this in October of 2023, and you'll see the total value for those top 20 singles cards was $4,417. You'll see in November that total value dropped. In December, that total value dropped again. In January, we started to see a little bit of an uptick, and then in February, we saw another uptick. And when we did this video last time, we saw 3 months in a row, right? 3 months in a row, to me, is the start of a trend. And even 2 months in a row is when I start to say, okay, everybody, we need to start paying attention because something abnormal is happening here. We might start to see the market turn around a little bit. And if you look at this graph right here, that's what we saw, okay? We saw it came down pretty sharply October, November, December, and then it was really working its way up last time we did this video. Now, guess what? Over the last 2 months, nothing has slowed down at all. As a matter of fact, it looks even better. So again, April up 2.35%, May up 1.7%. That is 5 months in a row of the total top 20 singles cards value going up. Listen, this is not driven by anything. This is simply people paying more attention to XY. I think XY is finally going to get its time in the sun here, and I'm really, really excited. I mean, look at that graph. It is just incredible. So again, you see from October to November, there was a pretty big drop, but if you take that into consideration, from October until May, the top 20 singles cards is up a total of 4.4%. Now, in this video, we're going to be looking at a bunch of the cards that are helping drive the market here because it's really exciting, and there's just some awesome pieces of cardboard that, even though they are on their way up, even though the prices are going up, I still think that when you compare them to some of the awesome cards in Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield, I think they are way undervalued when you think about how great the art is. And again, the XY era was totally different. You know, the print runs were different. The collecting base was different. Finding these cards in Gem Mint is incredibly hard. I did a whole video on all of the chase cards from the XY era. We looked at the gem rates. We looked at the overall populations, and they are infinitesimal compared to Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield. Now, as we always say, listen, that is only one part of the equation. There has to be demand for it, right? It doesn't matter how small the pop is if there isn't demand. But this graph right here tells me that at least for the last 5 months, people are starting to be more interested in the XY singles, which when we're trying to play chess, this might tell us, hey, listen, if there's some awesome cards out there at great values for 5 months in a row, people have been paying more attention to it, might be a time to go ahead and start picking some of these up. Now, as I said, I always do the booster boxes too. So this is the booster box graph, and I want to be clear, this graph is going to be super chunky, and that's because there is not a lot of liquidity in the booster box space in the XY era. Sometimes one will sell for $500–600 more than the previous sale. So you'll see what happened in March. We saw that, I think it was Phantom Forces, which had a big sale, so that jumped the overall market price of Phantom Forces up. So it's going to be clunky like this. There's going to be big peaks and big valleys, but the biggest thing is if you were to trend line this out, if you were just to take the overall market value of all of those booster boxes from October until May, guess what? That line would be aggressively up and to the right, and that is a 16% gain from October to May. I think that is really impressive. We always talk about how sealed does well in the long run, and even with that, I still think that there's a lot of booster boxes that are way undervalued. So listen, before we get into the singles cards that are driving some of these awesome games, if you find value in this content, if this is the kind of stuff that revs your Pokemon collecting engine, hit that subscribe button. If you have questions or comments, drop them down below. I love answering them. And if you like what you see, give us a big old thumbs up. As I said, we do a ton of work on this channel. Those three small things go a long way in helping us out. Lets me know you appreciate the work that we put in. With that being said, let's start looking at some of these singles cards. Now, if you follow this channel, you know that typically what I'll do is I'll put all 12 sets up and we'll look at how the total top 20 cards from every set has been moving. But for XY, I just want to highlight some of the cards that are really starting to move. And so we're going to start with 3 cards from XY Evolutions, right? You've got these Mega EX cards, right? You got Venusaur, you got Blastoise, right? Like XY Evolutions is obviously a throwback set chock full of Gen 1 Pokemon. But then you also have this Misty's Determination, and I love that card. Now, if you look at that 1-year price graph, it might not look overly exciting. Okay, it looks like, hey, listen, it's been flat for the last, I don't know, since November of 2023, it's been pretty much flat. But if you look at the 3-month graph right here, you're going to see that it is starting to make some aggressive moves. So it's up from $12 from 3 months ago, all the way up to $13.21. So the only reason I blew this one out is because I wanted everybody to pay attention to it in case this card is on the run. I'm telling you, I have a couple of these. This artwork is absolutely stunning. Misty is an all-time fan favorite, right? She's on that Starmie card, the trainer gallery card that's absolutely shooting up in price. Lots of momentum in the Misty space, so I wanted to call that one out there. And then one of the trends you're going to see as we go through this is these Mega EXs are just on absolute fire. Now, look at where that Venusaur and where that Blastoise was back in January, where we first started to see these trends move around. They were pretty much at 1-year lows. And one of the things we were saying is buying cards when they're at 1-year lows, like you start to see these support lines formed, and it really looked like there was a support line from here. And then from January until now, they have absolutely blown up in price. So that is incredibly exciting. Now, booster box price for XY Evolutions is $815. Believe it or not, even with these cards going up, that booster box price has been relatively flat over the last couple months. So I don't know. We'll have to see if these individual card prices going up is going to correlate to some booster box price growth, but I thought that was an interesting thing to call out there as well. Now, the next set we're going to talk about is Fates Collide, and I have been talking about Fates Collide because booster boxes are $500, and I think that is absolutely crazy, right? It's an Umbreon set. It's from XY, right? It is, what, 8 years old at this point, and you can get that booster box for $500. Oh my gosh, it's such an awesome steal at this time. Now, again, you see that Mega EX Alakazam, and you see the regular Alakazam. Again, for the regular one over there on the fall right, or I guess I shouldn't say regular, the full art one, you see that over the last 3 months, again, really aggressive growth right there, okay? And that Umbreon, we have talked in the past about how sometimes a big chase card from a totally different era, the value, the excitement around that character can kind of transcend across all of their cards. And we've been seeing that a lot in Umbreon cards, right? That Moonbreon at the top of Evolving Skies, that is driving a ton of interest in Umbreon. And I think that's one of the reasons we saw this make such an aggressive price jump here over the last couple months. Now, this is one of the few ones where you'll see the price is actually starting to work its way down a little bit. So somebody could have just gotten silly and decided to buy all of them out because maybe they listen to PikaPikaPaPa and they think Umbreon might take off because of the Moonbreon, but I'm sure people are much smarter than to listen to me. But it's interesting. It does look like the price went up really quick, and now it is starting to work its way back down. But both of these Alakazam cards have been going absolutely crazy. The one full art right there for at least the last 3 months. And then the M Alakazam EX there at least since January. And again, Fates Collide booster boxes at $500. I think that's an incredibly approachable price point. And I think there's a ton of value in there. And I do think that there's going to be some upside in the long run. Now, the next one we're talking about is Breakpoint. And I love Breakpoint, right? This is the one with the big Mewtwo cards at the very top. But it was cool to see that outside of the top chase cards, we're starting to see some of the other cards see action as well. And again, we've seen that when sets start to get hot, it isn't necessarily just the top ones that pop up, but a lot of the big name cards further down the list can do the same thing. And Espeon EX right there, look at that. Again, since October until now, that card has been on absolute fire. It is still under $25. It's starting to flatten out a little bit, but that is an absolute awesome card. Both of these Mega Gyarados right there are on fire, and they have been an unstoppable force of nature for the last couple months. Again, look at how they are popping up. And then again, I know $650 is a lot of money for a booster box, but this Breakpoint booster box is still right around $650, which I personally don't have $650 to go drop on a single booster box right now. I think I'd much rather maybe try and pick up a case of, I don't know, Paldea Evolved or something like that, right? Buy what will go up, not what has gone up. But I do think that that is a relatively fair price for a Breakpoint booster booster box, considering it's got those big chase cards at the top, and these other single cards are performing really, really well. Now, the next set I wanted to look at is Ancient Origins, right? This is one of the big dogs from the XY era. Booster boxes are up over $1,000, and look at that Giratina EX. Again, could this Giratina be getting some love because the Lost Origins full art, alt art is going through the roof? I don't know, but it has been doing really, really well again since January, right? Then you got the Kyogre right there. That card has gone, it was pretty much flat for the last, I don't know, 6 to 7 months, and then all of a sudden people saw how awesome it was and they're jumping all over it. I love the artwork of that one particularly. And then the Mega Rayquaza, that's obviously the big chase card here from this set, and you see that it isn't even near a 1-year high yet, but it is way up from that 1-year low we saw in January. And again, another card that we called out and say, hey, listen, this doesn't feel like a $135 card, right? This card feels like it's got some room to run, and it's rewarded us. It's all the way up at $160 right now. And again, it's not even at the 1-year high, so it'll be interesting to see if people continue to flood into XY, if people continue to buy in this, because remember, that's what drives prices up. What drives prices up is people buying the freaking cards, right? They don't just organically go up. So the market is the one that is driving these price gains, and I thought this was a really cool call out right here on my man Ray Ray. So the next group we're gonna look at right here is Roaring Skies, another one, booster box. Oh my gosh, I was standing right next to a guy at Collecticon over the weekend. He bought 4 Roaring Skies booster boxes. He got them for $550 a piece because he bought all 4 of them, and I was insanely jealous. I thought, oh my God, you are walking away with an absolute steal. But these Roaring Skies booster boxes, even at $600, again, not the kind of money I got to splash on booster boxes right now, but I do think that's a fair price point. Another set which is anchored by Ray Ray, and another set where we see the Ray Rays making big, big moves. The other one that's really called, it's just, again, another Mega EX. That Latios right there has been on fire ever since January. Now, just because sets have been popping off since January, again, it doesn't mean that they're going to continue to go up. But what I really like about these cards right now, and if you go back and you look at the very first slide, one of the things that I really like is that it's been slow and steady growth versus the Sword and Shield era where we saw all the top 20 cards go up 30% month over month. That is not what I consider healthy and organic growth. But what we have seen over the last 5 months here is 1%, 1%, less than 1%, 2%, 1.5%, right? Like, for me, that's what I like to see. That lets me know that the market is slowly absorbing these cards. People are getting excited about it, and for me, again, that's healthy growth. So hey, listen, I love doing this type of video. If you think we should look at this every single month moving forward like we do with Sword and Shield and Sun and Moon, since there is so much activity in the XY space, let me know in the comments below and I will absolutely do that. If you made it to the end and you enjoyed the content, give us a thumbs up. And if this stuff revs your engine and you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, we do fun stuff like this all the time, so hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you more than I can possibly say. Thank you so much for the watch. I hope you have an epic one, and I'll talk to you all soon. See you later, everybody. Bye.